Hi, from Google Cloud Next 2025. I'm Maribel Lopez, the founder and principal analyst at Lopez Research, and I'm really excited to be here today at Google Cloud Next. We have talked a lot about enterprise AI use cases, and I am so thrilled to be here today with Ashley Daniels, who's the VP of Product Management at Best Buy. Hey, Ashley.
Hi.
So nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And I've done a lot of transactions with Best Buy, and I mean, so many
You and I
people have.
both.
So many people have. And one of the things I think is so great is how retailers are looking at leveraging AI. And I know that you have been on this journey for a while, and that you've had a couple of different ways you're looking at use cases. Whether it's in the mobile app, the website, whether it's in the contact center, whether it's on the front line. So I thought we could get started by just telling the audience what you're thinking about in terms of an AI strategy. Like, where do you want to leverage AI at Best Buy?
Yeah, great question. So from day one, we have said that AI is a tool in our toolbox. So AI is not the goal. It is one solution, and often needs to be incorporated with many others to bring an actual experience to life. So we started there because when this craze started, you can imagine
AI everywhere.
People were out looking. It was like a solution looking for a problem.
Yes.
And that doesn't
Sprinkle
actually
some AI pixie dust over anything you wanted to do, right?
Yes. It doesn't lend itself to really good experiences, right? So we always start with the experience and the outcome that we're trying to get to, and then we pull in AI as one of those solutions as we're going. So some of the places that we're seeing it show up a lot right now, we did a really cool gift finder during the holiday season. We're doing some work with our discovery capability overall on the website and the app, et cetera. And we have been doing a full care transformation where we think about that end-to-end care experience, so not just the contact center, but you're thinking about anywhere from the communications the customer is getting all the way through.
The whole customer journey you're looking at?
Yep, and really trying to stitch that together in a meaningful way, and thinking of AI as one of those tools to bring those experiences to life.
And I think it's great that you said you were starting with the use case and working your way back, because that actually gets rid of one of the problems that a lot of people are having, which is where and how to start. Now, you've been on the journey for a bit. I know that you started doing a lot of work with Google Cloud in 2024. What made you select Google?
Yeah, we looked at a number of different partners. So kind of from a care perspective, we knew that we needed a full contact center revamp. And there are a ton of amazing point solutions out there. And we had many point solutions in place. So it's not even a joke. The reality that people talk about a lot is, like, when I came into this space, we had 93 applications that were needed to run our contact centers. So that doesn't mean that every agent needed to know 93 applications, but you can think about how very quickly the agent experience, the customer experience gets incredibly sticky and muddy. And so what we loved was a couple things. We loved the idea that we could have one solution from an end-to-end perspective that would help to create those seamless experiences and drive synergy throughout. And so as you think about, up until now, our chatbot and our IVR have been leveraging different solutions, as an example. I've had two completely separate teams building your chatbot and your IVR experience. When you think about it, they're actually just both conversational experiences that customers have similar needs. We should be doing that in a very human, natural way, but we were doing it separately. So bringing that all together, and then the idea that there was an agent experience component too, I think those pieces are critical. The other piece is we were not looking to be necessarily a customer, we were looking for a partner. And so we wanted to be really strategic about the partner that we chose. And as you think about bets to place, we felt like Google was a pretty good bet to place in this space from an AI perspective.
That makes sense. This whole concept of co-innovation, right? Not just being a vendor, but being a partner and really trying to help the technology and the use cases get to the next level. Now, AI is actually very interesting because there's been such tremendous change in the marketplace. Every several months we know that there's new technology that's coming in. So from your perspective, from an implementation perspective, what sort of surprised and delighted you, and what did you find that surprised you when you were moving into your AI journey?
Yeah, so there were some things that were like really happy surprises. There were things that we were able to get off the ground incredibly quickly. I think that we got our summarization capability into the contact center in like 6 to 8 weeks. which was incredible.
That's weeks, not
yeah.
months, not years,
Yeah.
weeks. Okay.
I mean, the bummer
Love
was
that.
that was the first capability that we rolled out, and so like we thought everything was going to be that easy. And there's just been a tremendous amount of learning for us.
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest learning, and that I think people forget or don't realize, is that your foundation is still so incredibly important.
So your data foundation, or what do you mean by foundation?
Yeah, I think it's your data. I think it is your processes. I think it's your domain expertise. And so I think people think that AI is coming to save the day.
Yeah.
And I just did a talk, and I was talking about how I think of the transformation we're going through as remodeling a house. And so if you're not clear on the outcome that you're trying to drive, if you're just trying to create a pretty house, it's not actually going to be usable when it's done. But if your foundation sucks, your windows are going to be leaking, you are going to have cracks in your walls, and you will not actually get the outcome that you wanted. And so you think about things like your APIs. Often AI is not doing its job on its own.
Yes.
Right? If you want an actual experience, you probably have some integration with your own enterprise APIs that are part of that. If those APIs have not been dusted off since the invention of an API, it is unlikely that it's going to drive the outcome that you want. So that's an example, right? So it goes beyond even the foundational data. The other piece is, I talked about domain expertise, but I think people think that when AI shows up to save the day, that we no longer need domain experts. We don't need to know how our capabilities actually work. And in my opinion, it's the exact opposite, because I think of it kind of like training like a 17-year-old employee who just started and does not necessarily know all the ways of the world.
Yes.
And you would not put that 17-year-old employee with somebody who's like, I kind of think this is how it works. And if you did, the outcome that you get would be an employee who's not incredibly knowledgeable, who's not confident, et cetera. And so maintaining your rigor around domain expertise to make sure that as we're training models, we're training it with the right information, and then also checking, like, do these processes and policies still make sense?
100%. So I think that was one of the interesting things when we started talking about robotic process automation. You were just taking a process that may or may not have been effective and accelerating it. And so now when you move into AI, you have the opportunity once again to look at that process and workflow and say, does that make sense? And are there ways to optimize it? And can AI help you optimize it? And I love what you said about the domain expertise, because AI is filled with promise, but someone still needs to know what to do.
Yes.
And someone also has to have the vision for what you're trying to accomplish. Like, you can't abdicate your strategy to AI doing it. Like, you have to decide what you want your customer experience to be and how you want to show up in the market. So I think that your discussion around what the domain expertise is, how do you leverage that, super important, and getting the processes right. And I think so many people don't look at the data infrastructure as well.
Yes.
Dirty data equals bad AI, which equals bad everything.
Yes.
And that's a challenge.
Yes.
So,
for
sure. It takes a village to get to AI, and lots of partnerships. You already mentioned Google as a partner. Who are the other partners that have been, strategic to you as you've moved forward in this journey?
Yeah, we've been really thoughtful as we've selected those partners and kind of the role and where we wanted them to play. And so Google has been a key component of that strategy. We've also partnered a lot with Accenture. And so we've had kind of a three-way partnership as we've brought this thing to life. And what's been really interesting is that each kind of part of that triangle is able to bring in a different but incredibly important perspective. And so as you think of, like, Google is very rapidly creating these new capabilities, and Google is going to know the most about how those capabilities are coming to life. But then you've got Accenture, who's got people across the country implementing these capabilities and has those experiences and can bring in the experts who have done it before. I just challenged my
implementation expertise, different strategies that they've seen, what's worked, what hasn't worked.
I just challenged my team a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I asked, like, who in this room has actually replaced an IVR before? And then no hands.
Crickets?
No hands. And I was like, how about like a Gen AI IVR? No hands, right? And it was like, so as we think about where we're bringing in those pockets of expertise to guide, I think that's incredibly important. But then as you think about our portion, that just because you have partners does not mean that you get to step back and take your hands off the wheel.
Gotta be in
Because yeah, we're the only people that can make decisions about the experiences we want for our customers. And ultimately nobody is going to know our business better than we are. And so our ability to think critically and lean in and kind of push the bounds as we design those experiences is a critical part of that triangle.
So you've obviously been working on it for a bit. You're working with partners. Let's talk a little bit about where you want to take it. So where do you think you are today? Because it's come pretty far in the past year. And then where would you like to take it in, say, the next? We're just going to go with a year because nobody knows anything beyond a year right now in AI. So
Yeah, it's a fun moment for sure. So a year ago, we created a vision video that I think everybody thought we were crazy. And what's fun is it looked an awful lot like a lot of what was shared on stage today. And so it's fun because it's like the technology is catching up to our vision. And when you give the technology a chance to catch up to your vision, it makes it a lot less painful trying to push that boulder up the hill. And so a lot of what we want to do from a contact center perspective is creating these very real human-like experiences. We want to be transparent. We're always going to be transparent when you're dealing with a bot, when you're dealing with AI rather than a human. But we also want it to feel empathetic and thoughtful and intelligent.
not robotic.
Yes, exactly. And so starting to build out some of those capabilities, I think is going to be incredibly powerful and can be a differentiator for us very quickly.
I absolutely agree with that. So one final question. Given that you've been working on it a while, you've seen the goods, the bads, what advice do you have for the people that are listening?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think the biggest piece of advice, I might do two, would be start with your outcomes. Be really thoughtful about what outcome it is that you want to drive. And then the second piece would be maintain that focus on the foundation. So the foundation includes things like your domain expertise. It includes things like your APIs and the technology itself that's underlying. It includes data, ensuring that your data is clean and you've got good data. Without that foundation, you are going to be so disappointed with the outcome that you get.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for listening. Ashley, thank you for sharing great insight with the teams.